This is The Boys podcast from TV Podcast Industries. We're back talking about The Boys Season 3 finale, Episode 8, The Instant White Hot Wild.
Butcher's right. Homelander needs to die. That's it, whatever it takes.
I really thought that deep down you were a hero.
Well, you were wrong. There's no such thing.
Welcome back, fellow boys and girls, to TV Podcast Industries. We're back for our final episode of The Boys podcast for Season 3. We're talking about the finale, The Instant White Hot Wild. I'm one of your hosts, Darick.
Hello there, fellow boys and girls. I am one of your other hosts, John. Yes, welcome back.
Just the two of us this time. Unfortunately, we couldn't have Chris with us for the finale of the season.
I know, boo-hoo.
I know. He's travelling at the moment for work. We thought we'd be able to get it all organised, that we'd have all three of us here for the finale, but unfortunately hasn't worked out this time. But he will be back for our wrap-up podcast when we're talking about the show in general, your final feedback on the show, and, of course, announcing the winner of our Boys Pub Quiz.
Yes. So don't worry, Chris will be back for the wrap-up for sure.
But we've got loads to talk about on this episode, I think.
Well, that's it. This is the chocker-block final episode of The Boys. I remember, fellow boys and girls, before we get into our spoiler-filled review, you can head on over to tvpodcastindustries.com, where you can subscribe to the podcast, if you haven't already done so, on any good or evil podcast catcher of your choice. You can also leave voicemail over on the website, and, of course, emails for any feedback, thoughts, comments, observations, theories on any of the shows that we look at. Head to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com and, of course, send in your answers to the pub quiz to that email as well.
Yes, you can. The 8th question will be coming later in this episode, but let's get into the discussion about The Boys finale, The Instant White Hot Wild.
Yes. Darick, who, what, when, where, why, how, maybe, but... off you go.
Thank you. The showrunner of the show is Eric Kripke again, based on the comic book series from Garth, Ennis and Darick Robertson. Executive producers for the show are Seth, Rogen and Evan Goldberg. This episode was written by David Reed and Logan Ritchey. David wrote episode 2 of this season, and this is Logan's first writing credit on The Boys, but he has been a writer's assistant on the show for 15 episodes so far.
Okay, so a long pedigree on The Boys. I guess just to make sure he gets the right amount of gore, the right amount of bloodshed and tension there. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the right heart, the right storyline wrap up. Lots going on in this season 3 finale.
Yes, the right stomach entrails.
Well, true. Well. Of course. We should say now, this it has been confirmed there is a 4th season of The Boys. In case you don't know, filming begins on that in August of this year. So we will probably be waiting about a year for the episodes to come out, because usually quite a lot of blood and gore and CGI, of course, for a superhero show. So probably expecting that towards the end of next year, but filming beginning just a couple of weeks' time, which is quite cool.
Yep, excellent stuff.
The director for this episode is Sarah Boyd, who directed last week's episode as well, directed episode 7. So tend to direct in batches for this show. So great to have Sarah on board for the finale. And John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for The Boys Season 3 finale, The Instant White Hot Wild?
Sure. Homelander, thanks to Congresswoman Neuman, finds and convinces Ryan to return to him from Auntie Grace's as he tries to build his true family back together after learning that Soldier Boy is his father. Elsewhere, Soldier Boy, Billy Butcher and Hughie head to New York to take down Homelander, but unwilling to harm Hughie further, Butcher leaves him and heads for New York with Soldier Boy. Hugh is collected on the road by Annie, where he apologizes for his mistakes, while Maeve escapes Vort's custody and meets up with Hughie, Annie, and Mother's Milk, and resolve to prevent Billy Butcher from carrying out his plan. But when they finally meet the boys, Maeve sides with Butcher and locks the boys and Annie in the safe room before leaving to kill Homelander. At Vought Tower, Homelander kills Black Noir for withholding the knowledge of him being Soldier Boy's son, and prepares for the arrival of his father. Homelander begs Soldier Boy to accept him, but Soldier Boy sees him as weak and a severe disappointment and attacks him. When Ryan attempts to save Homelander, Soldier Boy attacks him too, causing Butcher, Maeve, and the arriving boys to turn against him. As Soldier Boy is restrained, the boys try to knock him out using the Novichok prepared by Frenchie. In his bid to escape, Soldier Boy begins to fire up his explosive power, putting everyone in Vought Tower at risk. But Maeve, in a last gasp moment, tackles him out of the building while Homelander leaves with Ryan. Afterwards, the public mourns Maeve's apparent sacrifice, unaware she is still alive, but depowered. Butcher is in critical condition due to his usage of the V Compound 24. Annie joins the boys, Soldier Boy is put on ice by the CIA, and Neuman is appointed the new vice president running mate after the Deep murders her predecessor. The Soldier Boy's statue is taken down by braying Homelander supporters. Homelander introduces them to Ryan, where his first lesson for his son is how to get away with murder.
I think that's the name of the third season of The Boys, How to Get Away with Murder.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Lots going on, particularly in that last kind of wrap up to the season.
Yeah, exactly. It was just kind of putting everything, wrapping up a nice, neat bow, I guess, for the season, and showing what threads are there for season 4.
Well, exactly. We're going to go through our major moments from the episode, starting with our boys' protagonist moment, or the 7 antagonist moment, and then our outstanding moment from the episode. Do you want to kick us off with your boys' moment from the episode, John?
Yeah, I think it's Mother's Milk and Frenchie's chat, really. I really like this, and I think it's to the wider point of all the different things that are going on within the boys. And I include Annie in this in terms of what, Hughie and Annie are going through and have gone through, and how these are kind of resolved. But primarily around Mother's Milk and Frenchie's chat. In the last episode, hit Janine's stepfather, and, he's there kind of just eating himself up, that he never wanted to show the anger, the rage of that was inside of him to his daughter, Janine. I really like here with Frenchie's chat, just how he says, but, you are a nightmare, you're knackered, you're deeply messed up, yet you're also one of the best people I know. And I just really, really enjoyed how this sort of played out then through the episode, where again, when Billy Butcher and Soldier Boy arrive at their base and Mother's Milk is there, he's there with the gun. What would happen if I shoot you now, to Billy Butcher? Yeah. And steps down. I love Hughie saying to him, we save everyone, even those that don't deserve it, especially those that don't deserve it. Speaking of Billy Butcher, because there's something deep inside of him that is actually good. It's so deep. It's like a black hole. It very rarely, if at all, manages to escape the gravity of Billy Butcher's rage. But I really liked, I just liked how this all played out, with then right at the end, Mother's Milk sitting with Janine, going through the history of her grandfather and her great grandfather, and just really explain to them that, they were killed by heroes. Yeah. And sometimes they're not all they're cracked up to be. They're not the heroes people think. And just that they've been, he's been searching for justice in the same way that his father had done, all his life. And, that was the true superhero. Yeah. And I just really liked how that kind of played out here, because it's been something that's been playing on in the background throughout the whole of this season around with Mother's Milk, and his, need to pretend not to be this person, at least for his wife. Yeah. And for his child, even though his wife knows, and you had that earlier conversation with his ex-wife saying, you need to do this. This is what you do. And I thought this really resolved quite nicely. And I think also having that final bit that got him across the line of encouragement coming from Frenchie, who ultimately in the end, as he walks off, says, just get back on your pills again, because that at least helped. But so I really enjoyed this. And as I say, I think more widely, I think all the boys are going through this. You have Frenchie with his coke habit, and you see Kimiko there saying, what she sees in him is mon coeur. It's, it's her heart, my heart. Exactly. And you have Hughie and Annie were, Hughie's mistakes. And it's kind of just, you messed up here, says, really is the message from Annie. Yeah. But I'm glad you apologized to me for it. And I can shout out, I told you so.
I absolutely loved that from Hughie. I know every fiber of your being wants to scream, I told you so. And she does it so well. Really, really good. Really interesting with Kimiko trying to pull Frenchie back from the brink that he's been on. Effectively, he's saying that he's done with everything that's going on. She can see inside him the same kind of power that he sees inside her, that they are truly in love. So that is taken care of. Again, I was surprised that they didn't lean into them being in a relationship or not. It feels odd because we had the kiss earlier on in the season. Then Frenchie got kidnapped, but we didn't have a final kiss here between the two of them. It's still the will they, won't they? Or are they in a relationship, or are they brotherly, sisterly love? Are they just members of the same team who care for each other quite a lot? A lot of things said, but again, surprised we didn't get a kiss between the two of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just a surprise.
Yeah.
But nice to see them all kind of setting out their stalls as to who they are in the group. They are together. They are. I think this is one of the first times we've really heard them call themselves the boys as a team. When Frenchie welcomes Annie on board to the team, and MM welcomes her on. Everybody votes that Annie's now a member of the team. I think that was the first time I've heard them say the boys. I don't know why. I'm sure it's been said before, but it felt like we are now the boys with all of us together.
Yeah, or it's just re-emphasizing that because it's been so fractured this season.
Yes, exactly.
It's going to be dysfunctional still, but they all know where they stand with one another, and they're back together as a team.
Mm-hmm. That was also kind of my boys moment from the episode. This, obviously everything ends off here with a big battle between everybody. So we'll talk about that separately. I suppose one other thing I wanted to call out was I love Hughie's realization of what true strength really is in that conversation with Annie. His realization that all those times that his father stayed at home, keeping a roof over their head, cooking the same dinner every single night, the two of them working together to make sure that Hughie was safe and that he was kept alive, effectively. That's true strength, is what Hughie's saying, and finally realizing what Annie's always been saying. He doesn't need superpowers to be strong for her. He doesn't need to fight battles on her behalf. She can totally do that herself, but he has to be there as her strength by her side more than anything else.
That's it. So. And Annie has that same moment as well, in a sense, where she bins her Starlight outfit, because she says the suit, it was never the suit that gave me this power. It is within me. It is from me. Exactly. So really, really enjoyed that as well.
Yeah, I think that's probably enough for the boys' moments on their own. Will we move on to our 7 moments, our antagonist moments for the episode?
Yes.
John, where are we going?
Well, I'm going Black Noir returns to open arms and then to an open stomach cavity. Ultimately, I really liked the just how unnerved and unhinged all these moments were with Noir coming back. I mean, almost Ashley and the Deep almost Saved by the Bell with Noir coming back as they're trying to explain that Queen Maeve has managed to escape after they moved her without Homelander's permission. I just really, really enjoyed how just tense that moment was. I mean, I absolutely thought the whole sort of stomach removal was going to be happening in that moment, certainly with the sign from Black Noir saying we must kill Soldier Boy, effectively, which Homelander has just found out that he's his father. Black Noir doesn't know that, but ultimately it opens up with a hug and a welcome from Homelander saying, I knew you would come back, buddy.
So Black Noir does know that Homelander is Soldier Boy's son, I presume, because he would have been around at the time.
Yes.
So I presume he's aware of the whole thing. And that's part of the reason why Homelander's so annoyed with him, is that he knew all along Soldier Boy was his father and alive, because he's the one that turned him over to the Russians. So I love how it plays out. I love how effectively Homelander is crying at the thought that he has to kill his only friend, the person he trusts most. He has to kill him here because he's betrayed him, and that just can't stand with Homelander. That's a really interesting kind of idea, and I love how he uses it in that truly tense scene with the the last three members of the Seven, including Ashley, let's say. So it's Ashley, the Deep, and A-Train, and he's looking at them, just put down the helmet showing that he killed Black Noir, his best friend, and goes, I thought you were going to be my family, but I'm left with you. And this guy was the greatest person I've ever met. Look what I did to him.
Yes.
Remember, I don't need any of you, basically, is Homelander's call to the three of them.
Exactly.
As he completely eviscerates all three of them and what their contribution to the Seven has been. Really, really awful. Poor Ashley having to take off her wig and show that she has ripped out all of her hair at this stage. The Deep basically being told that after he had sex with the octopus, like, is that really the kind of support that he should be giving to Homelander?
Yeah.
And A-Train, of course, killing another soup, which is again completely stepping over the boundaries that Homelander has set, because he thinks all soups are their own beings and they're better than humans. So you kill one of your own, no matter what the reason is, then you're in the bad books for him. So none of these three are the kind of people he wants in his team. But having killed Black Noir for not telling him the true story, that kind of sets Homelander up for even more craziness, I guess, even more.
Well, that's it, yeah. I mean, I love how this all is framed around this need for acceptance from Homelander, this notion of family. You know, like you say, he thought the Seven were going to be his family. He's been betrayed. Queen Maeve, you know, he's been betrayed. Black Noir.
Yeah.
The notion of superheroes and their sort of greatness, certainly compared to mere mortals, has been ruined by A-Train. The Deep effectively is self-serving, and none of them have ultimately been the family that he wanted, but we see him, you know, finding his son Ryan at the start of this with Auntie Grace, and again, just this notion of companionship and family, which plays out later on with Soldier Boy in that way. So this was really good. I just thought the whole scene with Black Noir really tense. The one thing I really loved about that interaction between Homelander and Black Noir, because we haven't gotten to see behind the mask, but you have Homelander say, you know, everyone thinks you're this unreadable sphinx, but I can see everything behind that mask, your emotion, you know, when you're smiling, you're grimacing, you name it. And so I really, really enjoyed that. Then when he asks the question directly to Black Noir, and you know that nothing is said, but you know that he's reading his face behind that. Exactly. And we don't even get to see that. Or, like, I thought he might take the mask off after he had gut punched him, literally, and we might see some amazing prosthetics, but alas, we didn't. So, like, this was really, really good, I thought.
It really was. Loved the scene. And it does open up the big question. Is Black Noir fully dead? The only reason I asked that is because at the end of last season, we'd been told last season about his proper nut allergy that would kill him. He didn't have the ability to take an EpiPen to save his life. So at the end of last season, we thought Black Noir was dead. This time, I know he's pulled out his intestines, but we've seen him getting, you know, smashed through the head with the shield of Soldier Boy, which should have killed any normal person as well back in the 80s, and he's still alive. So there's still the possibility, I think, with this show to pull a little switch and have Black Noir back. We didn't have the same kind of memorial that we had for Maeve at the end of the episode, so didn't see that. Didn't see a reveal that Black Noir is dead. So other than what Homelander has said, is there a possibility that they'll bring Black Noir back next season?
Maybe. I mean, the only thing I think that is different is that, you know, his animated friends were back, and you have his, you know, them fading from his eyes on his mask, as you do kind of hear final breath type moments. You know, you hear him gasping and sort of dying, and then it goes silent as then the beaver bestie effectively sort of fades away in the mask. So I'm guessing that is partly that Black Noir is definitely dead.
Right.
But they could clone him.
They could.
I guess.
Yep, they could, certainly. It's entirely possible in this show that that's not the last we've seen of Black Noir, but what a way to go out, though.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that there's something about Anthony Starr that, and just the way it's done through all the seasons of the show, where those scenes are so tense. I'm always just sort of coiled, waiting for the nastiness to happen. And when it didn't happen in that first round, I thought, okay, that's interesting, what's going on. But obviously, it plays out a bit differently. I think Homelander is looking to really build, I think, as I mentioned, his true family. He's gotten Ryan. He now needs the father, and together they can rule the galaxy.
Yes, to take a Star Wars reference there. Good stuff. Anything else about Black Noir?
No, I think that's it, really.
All right, let's go on to the big antagonist moment for the episode, because we finally get the massive battle between everybody this time. We saw shades of this back in Herogasm, where we had the battle with Soulja Boy, Homelander, Hughie, and Billy. This time, everybody is in the room and everybody's in this battle. I love it. Really,
they really are, aren't they?
The only person out, I guess, is Frenchie, because he got shot while making the Novichok. So he doesn't come in until afterwards, but everybody else is involved. It's a really good fight. Wow. I know I complained earlier on this season that Dominique McGilligan, who plays Queen Maeve, hasn't really gotten her moment this season. She seems to get less screen time than everybody else, but they clearly were saving it up for this finale. She's absolutely fantastic as she takes on Homelander directly. There's comments made over and over again, mostly by Homelander, that he's the most powerful superhero alive. But that's partly because we haven't seen him be up against supes very often. It's usually him taking advantage of them not knowing that he's about to kill them, or he's taking on humans, basically. So killed quite a lot of people, mostly non-soup people. So seeing him going up against a fully powered Queen Maeve was really good. I thought that back and forth battle was great. Unfortunately, her losing her eye was really painful to watch for us. Must have been very painful for the character, of course, but very painful to watch. I could see myself squirming the whole way through the episode.
Oh, definitely. And I loved how it started off as well, with Homelander kind of saying, not now, Maeve. We have to get Soulja Boy.
Yeah.
And then you gradually see him realize that she's not backing down here. She's not going to allow him to help Billy Butcher get Soulja Boy, and that this is something that she it's separate almost from the Soulja Boy. She wants to take him out and deal him damage.
Yeah.
Because, when she gives him the bloody nose, and that realization comes to Homelander, that actually this fight is serious. And I just really like that. And I think, it's to these, the great thing about this fight, both with Soulja Boy, with Homelander and Maeve, are all these different motivations. The initial setup of Homelander wanting to have a family. It's all the different complex motivations that are bringing the boys here, Billy Butcher here, Queen Maeve here. They're all slightly different, and it all plays out really nicely in that she goes after Homelander. In between as well, these motivations change. So you have suddenly Soulja Boy knocking out Ryan, and you see the change with Billy Butcher all of a sudden, because at the end of the day, Ryan is his stepson, effectively, through his wife. So have all these different motivations, and I just loved how that played through on the fight. Even with Soulja Boy, you had Queen Maeve earlier saying, but what are they going to do? Are they going to hug it out or try and kill one another when they meet? Who knows? And I was still there going, what is going to happen? Because Ryan, you have that great moment at the start where Ryan hugs Homelander when he's been found with Auntie Grace, her, CIA handler, effectively.
Exactly.
And again, just the great moments with Homelander and his son, even right at the end, were, after the fight, Ryan takes Homelander's hand and asks to leave, and they go out, and then right at the end where he's introduced by Homelander to his fans, and he's holding his hand again. Each time they've had this really nicely discordant, uneasy music.
Oh, yes.
At Auntie Grace's, it was the piano. It was the kind of the strings with right at the end of the episode with Homelander's fans effectively cheering him on after he's killed a Starlight fan who dared to sort of shout at him and
throw something at Ryan.
And throw something at Ryan, exactly. So that all played out so amazingly, and I think, it's one of those choices, isn't it? Is Soldier Boy going to go with him or not? And I think what was really good about this was where you heard, Soldier Boy with Billy Butcher as they're preparing, talking about effectively the Soldier Boy story, but that fantasy that was done in the film versus the reality, as he recounts his childhood where, he wasn't from a working class district. He was born into a rich family. His father owned all the steel works in Pennsylvania. He went to boarding school. It was a huge disappointment. In the end, he took the V compound, was, celebrated for World War II and his role there, and yet his dad said, you took a shortcut, a real man wouldn't cheat. Exactly. And then here, in this moment before the battle, it's like his father comes out of Soldier Boy. It's like, I wish I could have raised you. If I had, then I could have made you better, not one starved for attention.
Exactly.
And that's when it just goes downhill.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously they're there to battle, they're there to take out Homelander, and it's like Soldier Boy is using his experience to know the exact right words to hurt Homelander before the battle begins. You tell someone you're disappointed in them if you're their father, that's going to really hurt them, because that's what happened to Soldier Boy. I thought that was quite an interesting choice there for him. Also, the reason why Ryan's on the side of Homelander from the start is it looks like nobody really has told him it's not his fault. Billy was protective of him, but it feels like that's the first time anybody had said to him, Ryan, it's not your fault. This can happen. You may kill the ones you love. You may kill the people that you love, but you're better than that. And that, because of that speech from Homelander, it's effectively put Ryan on his side, put him believing that this is his father. But I do like that he's the one that stops the battle and takes Homelander away at the end. And then we have, I guess it's almost the January 6th moment, isn't it? The attack on, or the gathering people outside Vault Towers, who even have the ridiculously dressed guy dressed up as the bull, like at January 6th in America. So specifically referencing that all these people are Trump fans. They would be, in this universe, fans of Homelander again. So just highlighting that. I know we have quite a lot of people that for some reason thought this show wasn't attacking right-wingers and Trump fans. This show is totally underlining it once again when we get to the end of the episode, that these are exactly the people that are being lampooned by this show. But seeing Janine's stepfather right in the centre of it, he's the first one that laughs and cheers at the fact that Homelander's killed this left-winger, this supporter of Starlight. He's totally been radicalized now by everything he's seen on the Vault News Network, by every speech that's been said by Homelander, every stupid excuse that doesn't make sense from Vault has totally radicalized this guy. So it was interesting. You mentioned earlier on about the conversation between Emma and his daughter, where he's explaining what the truth of the world is, that not all heroes are heroes, not all heroes are good people. But she's still living nice with this stepfather who's been trying to constantly push all of the propaganda coming out of Vault about Homelander on her. He even brought her to the rally before. So I don't know whether that story's done or whether he's been kicked out by MM's ex-wife. I would have expected that to be called out if he had been.
No, I think that's going to play out in season 4. I'm convinced of it. I think it's too big of a plot point, effectively, and I mean, it effectively puts her stepfather on a collision course, not only with Mother's Milk, but even with his own wife. And even with his daughter, his stepdaughter, Janine, because, she's been given a very different story that she seemed to be very open to, you know? So it will be interesting, and I think that will play out for sure. Yeah. I mean, I think as well, coming back to the fight, I think even the motivations, you know, you see Maeve absolutely honed in on Homelander, but at the 11th hour, where Soldier Boy is effectively charging himself up to take out effectively most of the Vought Tower, you see her really kind of recognize she's the one that's going to have to take him out here. And I love that she does that. I love she gets that hero moment. And I love that ultimately she survives it as well.
Yes, absolutely.
And is depowered, but she's back with her fiance. And I also like that Ashley, in seeing the video footage of the boys picking her up, after the explosion midair, which was really cool.
Very cool. Yeah.
I love that she deletes the file, you know, as they're watching it back, just so that there's absolutely no trace of this.
But isn't that really dangerous of Ashley to do? She's
really
just been told that effectively Homelander's best friend, who kept secrets from him, was murdered by him because of keeping secrets. This is probably a bigger secret to keep if Maeve's still alive. But yes, at least a little heroic moment from Ashley there. I also liked the reaction from Maeve when she realizes she has to do a heroic moment. She's just like, ugh, oh no.
I know.
When she realizes or thinks she may have to sacrifice herself. We've seen this in the past with Soldier Boy and his powers. You're never 100% sure what's going to happen to a soup that he faces with these powers or with this explosive ability. He specifically used his powers to kill Crimson Countess. He disintegrated her with the powers. In the past, that this has happened. This explosion has happened with Kimiko in the way, and she was just depowered, not fatally injured. Whereas at Herogasm, there were 6 or 7 soups that were taken out by his powers, right, by that explosion. So it was surprising, really, that Maeve survived this explosion midair where she's totally wrapped around him. But he survives it as well. So he always survives all of these explosions. And she has been a soup from birth. She's another one of those Vought experiments from childhood. So has been a superhero for these 30-odd years.
Exactly. So. I think the best thing that can be said about Soldier Boy's power is that it depowers other soups if they're caught in the radius of that initial explosion. Yeah. But ultimately, whether the soup survives or not is probably down to what power level they have. That's so, I mean, even just seeing Queen Maeve up against Homelander, I didn't think that was going to be as equal as it was. So she's incredibly powerful. I mean, even, you know, she took his laser eyes in her face. I mean, she then put her bangle up to sort of hold it. I mean, even with Soldier Boy, he took Billy's laser eyes to the face and survived that. So I think it depends on the level of power or the abilities of the actual soup as to whether they actually survive the blast or not. You know, they don't all necessarily, yes, they have powers, but they don't all necessarily have skin as hard as Diamond, say.
Exactly,
you know?
exactly. Yes.
So I think that's, I just thought it was really nice, that kind of hero moment, but also then with, you know, the wrap up elements where she's still alive. Effectively, she's been protected by Ashley. Because, I mean, we do see Ashley when they go to move her and they put the knockout gas in. Ashley mouths, "I'm sorry" to her. You know, so I think this is kind of that moment for Ashley just to make amends, at least in her own way, that she can. So that, I thought that was just, you know, everything just kind of tied nicely here. I think, you know, there's a lot of expectation on this last episode given what we've had, and I thought it handled it really well, and with a fantastic big battle
really
at Vought Tower.
Yeah, it really was. I really enjoyed that. I suppose you kind of mentioned just the one other movement that's in it, which is Starlight facing off against Soldier Boy. The reaction from Hughie while he's inside the control room watching onto the studio where this battle's going on, and he's kind of tossing up at that moment going, but Soldier Boy could kill Starlight here. Maybe I need to take the V-24 and sacrifice myself to allow her to live almost. But eventually he realizes, well, actually, even if I take the V-24, she's way more powerful than that if I can just help her along. So he builds up even more power in the room for her to draw on, and we see Starlight flying for the first time.
Yes.
That's something she can do in the comic books. So finally brought into the show here that she's able to fly if she has enough power underneath her. So and then she does survive. She's the one that knocks Soldier Boy to the ground while everybody gets on top of him and gets the Novichok finally almost taking him out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that. That's the kind of resolution to their story arc this season with Hughie realizing she's the powerful one and he should just support her and give her the power that she needs.
Yeah, and I like that Soldier Boy as well is effectively put in secure container, put on ice, whatever it is,
Yes.
but seemingly with the CIA
Yes.
here, as we see Auntie Grace sort of overseeing his transfer into that secure unit.
Yes, Mallory back in a proper position, no longer babysitting Ryan anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I'm glad she survived as well, the encounter with Homelander as he arrives, that ultimately on the basis of what Ryan said, that he didn't just kind of take her out, despite her clunky fat fingers sort of fumbling to get at the revolver.
It was actually her phone that she was going for because she was going to text Billy, I think. Interesting that Billy never picked up the phone from her.
No.
Wasn't it?
No, well, that's the thing. I think he was on his mission.
Yeah.
Nothing to distract, including Mallory.
Even Ryan, possibly, yeah. Anything else about the big battle from our antagonist moment, John?
No, nothing from me.
Do you have any other moments that you want to talk about from the episode?
I think it's A-Train and his brother Nate, really. Here we have effectively his brother Nate telling him, I don't want a murderer in my house here, get out. Really, this relationship has sort of broken apart, and A-Train is effectively being told, not to touch his brother because he knocks him out of his wheelchair. I don't quite know how his brother possibly made the leap that Blue Hawk was murdered by him and not... maybe it was just him reading the expression on A-Train's face, I think.
Yeah, I
but
think he knows it well
ultimately,
enough.
Nate wanted Blue Hawk in a courtroom, getting justice, not just to be taken out.
Exactly.
So,
especially because they can cover it up like they have.
Yeah.
They've covered it up saying Soldier Boy killed him, even though it was A-Train. So there's no story there. There's nothing that Nate can lean on to say, look, this is how bad soups are. It's been brushed under the carpet, effectively, like Vault do with everything. So that's why he's so angry at A-Train. And of course, we should really mention, of course, this whole arc that A-Train's been on, trying to give himself a new persona, trying to give himself this idea that he stands for African-American culture or black culture in America. That's not happened now. He's got his powers back, and the minute he does, he's back in his old A-Train suit, looking for that sponsorship dollars again, looking for a way to get his brother back involved in the whole process. Maybe if he buys him off with money, then it'll placate his brother, and his brother going, hang on a second, 3 weeks ago we were talking about how much you hated working for Vault, and now just because you got your powers back, you're back in their pocket again.
But it's ultimately, that's also what he's being told by Homelander to do. He says, you get back on your endorsements and sponsorship, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If we've got a 7, that's what you're doing. You're not killing other soups. You're not, that's what you're doing.
Exactly.
Ashley, you're just the CEO who does as I say.
Yeah.
And the Deep, you need to do what you need to do.
Well, exactly, which is my other moment that we need to talk about. This is the Deep being sent out to kill the possible vice presidential candidate. This is the first time we've seen Deep kill anybody.
Yeah.
In the past, it's always been accidental deaths of the creatures he's able to talk to. That's pretty much been Deep's abilities throughout the season. But this time we see him hanging out in a swimming pool because he's obviously able to breathe underwater. And he takes out the possible vice presidential candidates so that Victoria Neuman can step up. So now we know what the quid pro quo was between the two of them. Yeah. She gave Homelander the address for Ryan, and in turn, Homelander helps Victoria Neuman become the correct vice presidential candidate. One that's going to be a little bit in his pocket. interesting to think of how it works, I guess, in America, that if as vice president, she's next in line if anything does happen to the president. If Robert Singer now steps out of line at all, entirely possible that the White House will be controlled by Victoria Neuman, which is what probably will play out in season 4, right?
That's it. And this is also where I suddenly thought, okay, was Victoria Neuman along with Edgar, were they playing the long game here? Maybe, that, Edgar is no longer at Fort, but yes, it seems as though Victoria Neuman betrayed effectively a stepfather who saved her from the orphanage, but maybe there's a long game here being played by the two of them. So I think that's quite interesting whether that is the case or not. And ultimately, we'll see that in season 4 because we see the boys in their office watching her announced as the VP running mate for President Singer and
potential President
Singer or presidential candidate Singer, and realizing they have to go after her because she's dangerous in that position.
Absolutely, head popping. Goodness, possibly in the next season as well. I did find it surprising again that we didn't see Stan Edgar back at all in this final episode. We kind of thought there was opportunity to see him again as he walked away a couple of episodes ago. We thought this is partly to do with how busy Giancarlo Esposito is. He does so many shows and appears in so many great things that entirely possible that they just had a way to write him out for a few episodes of the season, but with Victoria Neuman in that position of power in potentially in the Oval Office next season, that gives an opportunity for Stan Edgar to come back next season, I guess. Yeah. Any other notes? Anything else you want to talk about the episode, John, that we haven't covered yet?
I think it's just to mention, Billy's brain is melting, and effectively he's got a 12 to 18 month window to live. You have that moment where the doctor is saying, if we intervene anymore, it's not going to help lengthen your life, and it will reduce the quality of your life that you have now. And so Billy basically tells him to F off as he lights up a cigarette.
As you do.
Because, well, I might as well have a smoke, I guess.
Yep.
So, just to mention that, because, that would be an interesting element to the whole scenario in season 4 as well.
Absolutely. I guess all bets are off now when he's on his way to his deathbed.
Yeah.
Does that mean that something like taking permanent V would be a way to possibly fix that? Is that something that he's going to do next season? He's taking the temporary V until it's almost killed him, and maybe taking permanent V would be the way to keep him alive.
Yeah.
But that's what he's always been against, right? As we said, he justifies it saying he's not a permanent soup, therefore he doesn't have to kill himself, but maybe he'll take V next season. One other thing I wanted to mention was it was very quick one-liner, but I love how the show does this, where they have Vought put twists on things that you may not even notice. There's a mention in the Maeve Memorial video, the documentary on Maeve's life. There's a mention that she went up against Soldier Boy, who was radicalized by the Russians, which I really like that they've just twisted it and blamed it on the Russians. Nothing to do with Vought at all. It's the Russians that radicalized.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what the Homelander fans are doing, of ripping down the statue of Soldier Boy outside Fort Tower.
Yeah, exactly. And then attacking the press who were outside because of their lies. Of course.
Well, exactly. And it's like, we can rip down that statue, you just can't rip down others. Yeah, I mean, it's again playing on that little notion as well.
It certainly is. So overall, John, what do you think of The Boys season 3 finale?
Yeah, I really, really liked the finale. I'd give it 4 melting brains out of 5. I just thought, there were a lot of things to wrap up here. I think it did it in a really epic battle and showdown between everyone. I thought it was really good how it was framed with very different angles as to why all those antagonists were there together, and how they were those motivations evolved as well, and even it was about the fracture and the tensions within the boys as much as it was about the fracture and the tensions within the 7 that have been happening. It was the notion of building a family against the oppressive never happy father figure, which ultimately Soldier Boy was. Just all these different elements coming together. And I thought it played out really, really nicely.
Yeah.
And wrapped up all the other different elements. And I just loved, like the evil smirk on Ryan at the end after he's just seen his father take off the head of a Starlight fan. And, in a sense, just linking in with what Homelander has said at the start, you're more powerful than humans. Accidents happen.
Yeah.
Is he saying, well, it was just an accident, even though it was deliberate, and the adulation that was being received from the crowd. So I just thought this all played out really nicely. And I thought this was a great finale to a great season of The Boys.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. It's been another really good season for the show. I like how they've structured the story. I like that everybody gets their moment in the end. A couple of things that could have been in the episode that I was surprised weren't, as I mentioned when we were going through our full discussion. But that doesn't take away from this being a really good finale.
No.
Overall, really, really enjoyed it. So glad we get more. And it's great to know there's a fourth season already starting production
Definitely.
right now.
And, you have as well then, I love the tension with Black Noir. I love, the final member of Payback is taken out here, not by Soldier Boy, but by his son. So for me, this is 4 melting Uzi brains out of 5. But Darick, what about yourself?
I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this as a finale to the third season of The Boys. As I said, I'm glad to see that there's going to be a fourth season coming. I'm really intrigued to see what they're going to do with the spin-off of The Boys, the college set spin-off, which still has yet to be named, but I believe has finished filming. So we may see that before the next season of The Boys. We'll also see some more Diabolical coming up, the animated show. So lots and lots more from this universe. And if they keep the writing as good as they've done it throughout this season of the show, then I'm up for loads more, boys.
Yeah, definitely. Great, good stuff. And it'll be good to find out what Chris's thoughts on this finale episode are, as well as our fellow boys and girls in a moment on feedback. But let us just firstly head off to the pub. I think we all need to drink after that massive battle. And let's get to the 8th and final question of the boys' pub quiz.
Yes, absolutely. Put together all the answers to all 8 questions. If you missed any of them, pop on over to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com. There's a post up there that has all 8 questions listed out now. What is the 8th question for the pub quiz, John?
It is, what movie did the Soldier Boy story film lose out to for the Best Picture award at the 1951 Oscars?
Interesting one. At least there was some consolation for Soldier Boy, apparently.
Yes, in the cloakroom.
Losing that, yes. John, trying to get the question one more time.
Definitely. What movie did the Soldier Boy story film lose out to for the Best Picture award at the 1951 Oscars?
Excellent. Put together your answers to all 8 of the questions. Email them into us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com and you could be in with a chance of getting your hands on some boys goodies.
Absolutely.
We will announce the winner of that on our wrap-up podcast coming in a couple of weeks' time. This episode of TV Podcast Industries was brought to you by our supporters over on Patreon, including Steve Brown. Thank you so much, Steve. I know Steve hasn't had the opportunity to send in many pieces of feedback for the boys this season, but I know he's been watching because he's been covering it over on his podcast, Panels to Pixels. So I've been able to hear Steve's thoughts over there.
Good stuff. Thank you so much, Steve, for the support. Really appreciated. Remember, fellow boys and girls, you can also support us monthly for any amount that you would like to over on patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries, or you can also support us with a one-off donation over at buymeacoffee.com/TVPI, where you can buy us a coffee. And of course, as always, you can support us simply by subscribing to the podcast and sharing it with your friends. Remember, sharing the podcast is, of course, sharing the love, and any support, whichever way you so choose, is great stuff and really helps us with podcasting, getting the episodes out, and sharing our dulcet tones with new listeners to TV podcast industry. So great stuff. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. We also love hearing your thoughts about the episodes. Keep sending them in to us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. Just like William Petrosino, who sent in an email before the finale aired with a little tidbit about episode 7 and some thoughts about what he thought was going to happen in the finale. First up, he says, I was listening to your review of episode 7. Man, it was so great. You mentioned that Black Noir reached for his brains in a scene. It also mirrors the fact that the legend said the Soldier Boy was at Dealey Plaza, which was where JFK was killed. At that time, Jackie O actually reached for a piece of JFK's brain just after he got shot. A little detail from the writers added to tie it into our world and the world of the boys. Looking forward to the finale, he says. I have to say this has been hands down the best season of the boys so far. The action, the story, the drama, the violence, the humour, the satire has all been on point. I'm a new listener to you guys and really enjoying your talk about the show. I love everything from your knowledge of the comics and how they differ from the show, your humour and your amazing accents. I know I brought some spoilers before, but I have 2 theories that I'm looking forward to seeing if they have any truth in it at the end of the season. Soldier Boy is Homelander's father, but we have not talked about who his mother is. I wonder if a slight tie into the comics may be his mother is Stormfront. We haven't seen her since she quote-unquote died a few episodes ago, and it would be an interesting tangent and dynamic to see her and Soldier Boy reunite with their progeny. The Soldier Boy storyline may be wrapped up or make him a more minor character next season. Jensen Ackles will be a main cast member on Big Sky on ABC this fall, and The Boys starts filming in August 22. We'll see what happens with him. Perhaps a plot with Homelander losing his powers and needing to track down Daddy next year to regain them. Whatever happens, this show has done a smashing job, and you guys are amazing and very entertaining to listen to while discussing it. 5 out of 5 blood puddings this year.
Excellent stuff, William.
Thanks, William.
Really good. I'm loving the 2 theories. Certainly, who is Homelander's mother, I think is a great one, and certainly can continue that family legacy element into season 4. Certainly with Stormfront, she's dead now, isn't she? She's dead.
Yes.
Like, not just sort of maimed, sort of amputated and lying on the hospital bed.
Yes, according to Vault News Network, she bit her tongue and died in hospital, and it was broadcast on TV for Homelander to see. But, as we know, with everything from VNN, may not be 100% true.
That's true.
But they'll also need a new studio next year to do that.
They really do need a new studio,
VNN
exactly.
News reports. But you never know. Like, you absolutely don't know where the show is going to go. It loves to do those surprises where you think someone has died and then they come back. So you never know.
And I think as well, then, absolutely would love to see Jensen Ackles back as Soldier Boy. Loved this character in this season. I think certainly, as I say, he's on ice, so he can always be defrosted and pulled out, I guess.
Yeah, ready to be rolled out if they do need him back next season. Thanks so much, William, and thanks for listening along. Great to have you with us on this journey throughout the boys. Loads more stuff from the boys coming as well, so hopefully you'll stay with us for that.
Yeah, thanks, William. Great to have you on board. We also have an email from Coffee and Vodka. Greetings, fellow to-be-continued defenders. Not much to say about this season finale. Compared to most shows out there, this stood head and shoulders above. Compared to the episodes building up to this one, however, it was a bit of a weak reset. Although the highlight of Maeve getting hers against Homelander really was outstanding, turning the source material around and killing off Black Noir instead, though anticlimactic for him, was zigzagging genius. The rest was just enough nice turns to get the gang back together for what should be a decisive season 4. Looking forward to the debut of Homeboy, patent pending to Chris. 3.5 faulty father figures, fracture, fraught Frenchies, and sleepy soldiers out of 5. Peace and take care, Coffee and Vodka. Thanks so much, Coffee and Vodka. Yes, I think there's a lot to like in this season. I think season finales, they have that challenge of wrapping things up, preparing for season 4, certainly when they knew that was being rolled out.
Exactly.
Bringing everything together. And I thought they did this well. So I think, like yourself, it was just pitched at the right level, but maybe it wouldn't be to everyone's sort of final epic season ending episode, I guess.
There also is that thing about the satire of it. They don't want to kill anybody off either. They're keeping those people around because there's lots more that they can do to satirize not just superhero movies, but the world that's out there at the moment as well. So they don't really want to kill anybody off if they want to bring them back next season, which can sometimes be disappointing when you think you're going to get a big final battle with people dead everywhere. But thanks so much for your thoughts throughout the season, Coffee and Vodka. Really good to hear from you.
Great stuff. Thanks, Coffee and Vodka.
Next up, Jerry says, hey guys, hands down, the best show out there. Now we have to wait a year or so for the next season. Queen Maeve sacrificing herself. I did not see that coming. Her fight with Homelander was brutal. Homelander killing Black Noir, very vicious and personal.
Oh, yeah.
Also didn't see that coming. Butcher having heart and saving Hughie from V24, and now he's terminally ill. Next season should be fun. Butcher really not giving a flying F about anything. Poor Ashley, A-Train and the Deep being told by Homelander how worthless they are. The Deep is now just a minion of Homelander, killing the vice presidential candidate for Neuman. In the end, why keep Soldier Boy alive? You could have cut his head off in his weakest state. Ryan needs the Omen music playing whenever he's on screen. Homelander and Ryan are now the worst kind of people, entitled white parent and entitled white kid. The future of the show is going to be diabolical. Jerry in Niceville.
Excellent stuff, Jerry. Yeah, I mean, completely agree. Ryan is going to be a problem child for sure.
He is.
And to be honest, yeah, why keep Soldier Boy alive? That's the thing, isn't it? When you know that you, in any movie or TV show, and one of the big bads is kind of put on ice, never to escape their sort of prison, except then they escape. And
of course.
I just wonder if, because we see Agent Mallory doing the sort of lock and key for Soldier Boy, whether it's some form of insurance against superheroes because he can effectively depower them.
Yeah, there's always a reason to keep them alive. If they can just extract his abilities, maybe that gives the boys the advantage, or the CIA the advantage.
Exactly. I mean, it's not to say it's going to run smoothly by any stretch of the imagination, but I just wonder if that's the reason.
And I also think maybe it was because they were concerned about getting Maeve away from the situation, to hide the fact that she's still alive, and to save her for after she saved them. So we did see that's what the boys were up to at the time, standing in the street and cutting off Soldier Boy's head might not have been something they had the ability to do.
Yeah, exactly. Great stuff. Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry.
Yeah, also by email, Gary Swift says, OMG, OMG, OMG. This is the best season of the show. Previous seasons are merely set up for this one. The Annie arc is what made this season for me. She finally stepped up to be the leader of a team. She, more than anyone else, is the de facto leader of the boys. I feel bad about saying this, but MM and her make a better couple than Hughie and her. Butcher has been hoisted upon his own petard. Everything he's suffering with is because of his own actions. The scene where Ryan chooses Homelander was the most honest moment in the show. I don't think he'll tell the group about his medical condition. My prediction is he'll have to take Compound V to heal and will be a permanent soup. What happened to Edgar? I was expecting Gus to come back. What happened to Newman's daughter? Maeve got a happy ending and Ashley did something good indeed. A-Train might be the most pathetic person. His entire arc this season keeps making him worse. Don't get me wrong, Deep is awful, but he's too dumb to know better. A-Train knows he's giving himself to people who don't value or respect him. He's begging for scraps from the trash can. Gary. Thanks so much, Gary. Yeah. I think you're right. We're talking about A-Train having a redemptive arc here, and now he's just fallen back into place, I guess, with the rejection from his brother and the threat from Homelander. So, yeah, really, really interesting. And, of course, yeah, like yourself, Edgar is somewhere there or thereabouts in his sort of semi-retirement, as I say. I just wonder if the Victoria Neuman sort of play with what happened to him there was some kind of long game.
Yeah.
In order to get her into VP position to ultimately become president.
Yeah. Yeah. But whether that's her plan or a plan concocted with him, we don't know yet. But it seems like her plan at the moment. I was also surprised, exactly like yourself, Gary, surprised never to see Newman's daughter again, given that we had that moment where she was injected in the back with Compound V, where it was never mentioned or brought up again, or we never got to see what powers she had. it's another story thread they're keeping for season 4, I presume, but it just seemed really surprising we didn't get that in the 4 or 5 episodes after that moment happened.
Well, interestingly, I do think that Victoria Neuman, you know, just thinking of where she was at the start of the season, it ended off sliding further and further a bit into the background here. But let's not say that's a bad thing, but ultimately that's kind of what happened. All the events took over from what was happening with her story arc at the start.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks so much, Gary. Let's head on over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/group/TV podcast industries for some more feedback. First up, David Mr. Ryder says, I am so conflicted. I don't know how to feel. My boy Noir, he deserved a lot better, but hoping he comes back some way in season 4. Really would have loved to see a big battle between the two of them. They really zigged when we thought they were going to zag. A nice send-off for Maeve. I guess we found out what that Neuman favour was. P.S. Anthony Starr's acting when Ryan said, you don't hate me. Man, I had to rewind that. Acting with his eyes. Absolutely marvellous. Overall, it was a good finale. Don't know what I would change. I do feel like something was missing, but can't really explain it. Maybe Noir's anticlimactic death, but overall, no complaints. 4.9 RIP Noirs out of 5. Spoiler theory, I think Noir returns in season 4, going true to the comics, which I've never read, but have some knowledge based on listening to the podcast. Thanks, David Mr. Ryder. Good to hear your thoughts. I'm still, as I say, I can't count out that Noir won't be coming back in season 4. I think that's just something about this show. They like to pull those twists and turns, so nobody's ever really dead in comics either, are they?
Well, that's true. Yeah. And as you say, there was no mention of his passing here.
Yeah. Nowhere outside of the team.
Who knows, David? It might certainly be the case that Noir is not RIPs, in fact.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Parthenia Locklear also says, agreed, Black Noir deserved more. What was all the build-up for? That's probably the only thing that disappointed me. Everything else seemed on par. I enjoyed it. They did all of that fighting because Soldier Boy didn't care about killing Ryan. That was a bit dramatic. The best part of that whole season was finally getting to see Maeve fight Homelander. I'm really excited for season 4.
Excellent stuff. Thanks, Parthenia. Heather Wallace says, that final shot of Ryan certainly shows what a little psychopath he's turning into. Good acting by Cameron Crovetti with just the smallest of facial expressions, indefinitely. Of the totally despicable lackeys, Ashley did a good thing by keeping Maeve's survival a secret. The Deep will now do anything to keep Homelander's favour, and A-Train did absolutely nothing at all. A-Train's story is the most frustrating of all. I wish he'd have some sustained character growth. So glad Hughie finally made the right decision, choosing to turn up the power for Annie rather than taking V24 and rushing in himself. It was sweet how proud of her he looked. Yeah, thanks so much, Heather. I think you're right. I think A-Train really is, dare I say it, zigging and zagging up and down, really, in terms of growth. You think he's about to do something good, and he does something good and then just falls right back off that perch that he's just created for himself. So really good. And you're right, Cameron Crovetti, that little Damien look is great. And I as I said in the podcast, there's that discordant music behind those two interactions with him and his father Homelander were just nicely creepy indeed.
Yep. Thanks so much, Heather. Jamie Lawton says, what can I say? The finale did not disappoint. I know people have been saying Maeve hadn't been seen much this season, but when she turns up, she really turns up. Not 100% sure if Noir will turn up again, as one of his powers seems to be super healing, and we have seen him recover from just as bad, if not worse, injuries. But I did like the way they showed the light leaving his eyes when he died, passed out. Also like the mugshots above the chute in the boys' HQ. Reminded me of something I believe that is in the comic, either a panel or cover. Yeah, that was quite a cool little touch. I think the covers of the omnibus books have each of the characters from the boys on the cover with their mugshots. So that looks like a touch that they brought into the show there. Good one, Jamie. I think we're all on the side. We just have no idea whether Black Noir is gone for good or not.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the show.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thanks, Jamie. Dr. Bob says, a few tiny highlights for me within an evisceratingly good final episode. Kimiko assuring Frenchie what we all know, that he is all heart. Mm-hmm. Hughie stepping back and whipping up the power for Annie to take the spotlight. Pirate Patch Maeve taking the jump of faith and into her heroic self. And they erased her by nature, even in death. Good stuff, Dr. Bob. Thank you for that.
Yeah, that was another interesting touch in the, because remember, Vought has always said she's a lesbian because it's easier to sell to the public. We know Maeve is, of course, bi because she had sex with Billy this season, as well as obviously leaving with her girlfriend at the end of the season. But,
yes.
But once again, in her memorial, it was all about her being lesbian because it's such an easier thing, as I say, for Vought to sell to the public. But yes, of course, that's the way they write the history of their soups, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Bob.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Bob. Joe Herbert says, I thought for sure Edgar would reappear this season. Maybe next. I didn't expect the only soup death to be Noir. Given the final scene with the cartoon characters, it seems like he's probably dead. I wonder if Soldier Boy ever resurfaces. It's hard to envision how Vought can spin Homelander killing a guy at a rally for throwing a cup. Not sure what the starting situation will be with them next season. Will there be a 7? Surely Homelander could find the boys' HQ if he wants to. What's now stopping him from killing at least Butcher? Maybe Ryan has asked him not to?
You know, that could be it. Maybe Ryan is staying the hand of Homelander, or else, as always with Homelander, sometimes they're just ants underneath my boot. I don't really need to go and kill Billy Butcher right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes it's that.
And I think what's really interesting with Homelander is, you know, he's so focused on family, and in the end, Ryan is in part related, not directly by blood, but is related to Billy Butcher. Yeah. And I would kind of love just seeing that explored, because again, it's that interesting choice, isn't it, where in the end, Billy Butcher goes to Ryan. You know, he talks of, well, I made a promise to his dead wife. So I find that a really interesting complexity to the relationship of Billy Butcher and Homelander because of Ryan. And I think that's why he walked out of there. He knew that Billy Butcher, when it came to the crunch, protected Ryan, went after Soldier Boy rather than going after him. So, you know, not I'm saying he's going to be best friends with him, but in Homelander's weird little mind, that is what he's looking for, always. And you have Ryan effectively, you know, defusing that situation as well. So I think there's some really good sort of veins that can be kind of tapped into here for season 4 between these. It's really complex in a way.
Yeah, and you always forget as well how Homelander's powers really do strip everything back to bare basics as well. The stuff that he knows from his powers are things like he probably will know that Butcher's hurtling towards his death. He's probably able to smell that from outside. So is he no longer a threat to Homelander?
That's ultimately the other side. Homelander doesn't need to worry about him because Billy Butcher will be gone in 18 months.
Exactly.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks, Joe.
Absolutely. The last piece of feedback comes from Matt Murdoch over on Twitter, who says, all in all, a great season of The Boys. A finale as jarring as anyone could have hoped for, right down to that really disturbing Christopher Leonard's cut, I can do anything /finale. That violin sent as many chills through my spine as Ryan's semi-satisfied look in the end. Oh, yes. John, you've mentioned that a few times throughout this episode. The music from Christopher Leonard for this episode, really jarring, really sets your teeth going, doesn't it?
It really does. Like, it's just very disturbing and creepy. Yeah, but great stuff. Love it.
Absolutely.
Sets the tone for Crazy Kid season 4.
It certainly does. Thanks so much, Matt, and thanks everybody for all of your feedback for the season. That's not the last opportunity. If you didn't get the chance to send in any thoughts to us during the season, you can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com or pop on over to our Facebook group and leave your thoughts over there on the last spoiler post that we have up there, and we'll talk about it on our wrap-up podcast. Will be coming in a few weeks' time.
Yes, and of course we also have the final episode of Miss Marvel to cover this coming week as well.
Another finale. Yeah.
Exactly. And the start of our Umbrella Academy Season 3 coverage, which is out on Netflix now.
Yes, the whole season dropped a couple of weeks ago, but right in the middle of our coverage of The Boys and Miss Marvel. Wanted to make sure we got those out of the way a little bit. We got the guys traveling a lot this month, so we only have a certain amount of time, but we have started our recordings for our Umbrella Academy Season 3 podcast. The show came out on Netflix a couple of weeks ago. All episodes available there. It was dropped over there all in one day, but unfortunately right in the middle of our coverage of The Boys and Miss Marvel, with both of them ending this week, gives us the opportunity to go back and talk about the wonderful Hargreaves family once again for Season 3.
Yes. Exactly. Well, thank you so much, fellow boys and girls, for joining us. As always, like Black Noir, gut-wrenching in its finale for this season of The Boys, but it's always a pleasure chit-chatting to our fellow boys and girls about all things to do with The Boys. Really enjoyed this season and all the feedback and thoughts coming in from our listeners. Really good to hear. So thanks so much, fellow boys and girls. And remember, keep watching, keep listening, and don't go into the pool. You'll never know what's going to happen.
Bye.
Bye.